Hello and welcome to Gift of Failure, Frequently Asked Questions, episode 7. Yaw! It is a beautiful sunset this evening in New Hampshire. There is that certain slant of light on late winter afternoons, even though I know it's spring, it's not really, there's still snow in my backyard. And I wanted to answer a question that I got 4 times over the last week or two. From a couple of events that I did. So by the time actually when this video goes up, I'll be heading back out on the road. I'll be in DC all this week. So if this comes out, if you watch this right after it comes out, I'll be in the Washington DC area all week long. If you're there, you should come out and say hi. Go to jessicalahey.com and you can find my event schedule. Okay. So if you have a kid who is saying something, let's say you have a kid who is working on their homework in the other room and what you keep hearing is this: I can't do it, it's just too hard. I'll never be able to add fractions, or I'll never be able to do long division, or I'll never be able to identify a noun. These sorts of questions. So I wrote an article a couple of years ago for my column in the New York Times called "When Children Say I Can't, But They Can, and Adults Know It." I was answering a question for myself, as so often is the case. My kid had all of a sudden forgotten how to, I think it was use the laundry or do the laundry, load the dishwasher, whatever. He'd suddenly forgotten how to do things that I know he knew how to do. And I was really frustrated with that. And I started asking therapists, what's with this feigned helplessness thing? Why all of a sudden is my kid faking helplessness? And I even have books about this. I knew this, but all these people came back to me and they said, Jess, that's not feigned helplessness. That's learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is something that we teach them. True. I taught my son to be helpless, because if he was complaining, for example, about doing the laundry, if he just said I can't do it long enough, I would do it for him, thereby reinforcing the fact that I really truly believe that he can't do it. So what do we want? Well, what we want in kids is not learned helplessness. Obviously that's a pain. We want kids who really do believe they can do stuff, and that comes down to a little something called self-efficacy. This happens to be the big textbook on self-efficacy by Bandura. It's a thing of beauty. It's definitely a dense read. Self-efficacy is the belief that a kid can make a decision here and that will change things in their life. That will change things, not just, maybe even not just right here, but in the world. That if I make a decision to do this math problem here, I can learn this math and I can do something with this math out there to change the world. Or if I don't want someone to talk to me that way, I can say, don't talk to me that way, and it will change the way that person talks. Self-efficacy, a feeling that I can do things in the world and that it'll affect my environment and maybe even the world beyond that. That's what we want in kids. And there's whole textbooks. Here's one, Self-Efficacy Beliefs Among Adolescents. All this stuff is really, really important because it helps kids feel like they are competent and that the stuff they do matters. Now, there are lots and lots of kids who live in environments where they don't ever get that chance to feel self-efficacy because they don't want to be treated in a certain way, but people continue to treat them in a certain way. Or they live in an environment where the adults in their lives don't feel like they have any efficacy, and so they throw their hands up constantly. And what they're modeling for their kids is, why bother trying to change anything? The world will never change. That's a lack of self-efficacy. That's also learned helplessness. So in order to break that cycle, the best thing we can do for kids is give them more control back. In this specific example about the homework, when a kid says, I'll never be able to do it, never, ever, what they're really saying is that they don't feel like they have a lot of efficacy in this moment. And so what you can do as a parent is you can start using a really, really magical word that a lot of teachers have been wearing on pins. I have a whole bunch of these pins that I've been given at schools all over the country that just say yet. Because that word yet is incredibly powerful. What it means is you can say to a kid, okay, so you can't do this math yet. Of course you can't. This is hard. I just introduced you to this, or your teacher just introduced you to this. Of course you can't do this yet. Or it's your first guitar lesson. Of course you can't play Layla yet. Eric Clapton couldn't play Layla on his first lesson because he hadn't written it yet, but also because he didn't have the skills. Yet is a really, really powerful word. The more you talk about the yet, the more you can get kids believing in the yet, the power of yet. Yet is this incredibly powerful thing. No, you can't do that now. Not yet. You can't do that now, but maybe you will be able to do it tomorrow if you work on it tonight, or in 2 weeks, or in a month, or whenever that thing is. Okay, so in order to have a belief in their own self-efficacy, and in order to feel like that yet is not just an empty promise, they have to have a couple of things. Oh, and by the way, yet really does come from Carol Dweck's mindset. Carol Dweck is big into this idea that when she talks about fixed and growth mindsets, that growth mindsets result from us pushing ourselves to try things that are difficult and laying down new pathways in the brain and stretching so that our intelligence becomes greater. That's yet is a real power of Carol Dweck message. Okay, so in order for our kids to really believe that yet is not an empty promise from us, we have to do a couple of things. We have to really, again, model for our kids that what we really care about is the learning, because yet is all about the learning. Yet is not about the product, right? Yet is all about the promise of next time. What are you going to do differently next time? Your kid comes home with a low grade, and you can say something like, oh, that's interesting. So you got a whatever, a B minus. What did you do to get that grade? What are you going to do next time? What are you going to leave behind here and take with you so that you can do better next time? And that's all yet language as well. And that shows your child that you really do care about the process of learning, because you're all involved in this yet question. Okay, so here's some things we want to convey that will help with this yet thing. So first, resilience. And by the way, this is by Kenneth Ginsburg, who is Kenneth Ginsburg. I think you're fantastic, but I think you already know that. Resilience. So I actually really like in kids is great, in children's and teens, it's fantastic. Resilience means that our kids know that we really do have their back no matter what, that their community supports them and we are their community, that we support them through that learning process, we support them even if they don't have the right answer right away, that we are all about having their back during this yet process. And that does not mean doing their homework for them. That does not mean rescuing them. That means being fully invested in that learning process for them. It also means that our kids have a little bit of hope. And there's another book, I should have grabbed this one as well. There's a fantastic book that is called Making Hope Happen by the late Shane Lopez, someone I miss very, very much. Shane, I miss you. And I'm not going to say this as eloquently as Shane Lopez, aka the Hope Monger, says it, but hope is the belief that things can be different and that we have the power to make them so. And if you listen really carefully to that, that has that self-efficacy message in it, that things can be different and that we have the power to make it so. I have the power to change my surroundings. I have the power to change my world and make the world the way I want it to be, make my existence the way I want it to be. That's the power of hope. And, operating without hope, there aren't a lot of things I'm going to engage in if I don't believe that they could be successful. That's all about having hope. We also have to help kids find purpose. William Damon, Path to Purpose. I happen to love this book. You can tell the books I really like a lot have all these Post-it notes in them. I have a code. There's a way the colors work, but whatever. Purpose. Purpose is more about it's about a little bit about self-efficacy, but it's also about the fact that I know that there is a greater goal of mine out there. I have a purpose here in the world, and all this learning that I'm doing is helping me find that purpose, whether that's if I can learn how to add these two fractions, or I can learn about the power of the arch, then I can go out there and I can build bridges that can withstand an earthquake. Purpose, it may not be about an academic thing. It may be a spiritual thing. It may be an interpersonal thing. In order to have purpose, my purpose in life is teaching and writing, and really the writing is part and parcel of the teaching, and for me that's my purpose, and without that I think I'd be adrift, and I know I probably wouldn't have as much resilience if I didn't have that purpose. Ideally you move towards what's called a self-driven child. Woohoo, sorry. I happen to really like this book. It just came out, or is just about to come out. Hold on, let me help you with that. This book is coming out in Oh, I don't even know. Soon, if it's not already out. But take a look for it, The Self-Driven Child. It's actually really, really good. I'm about halfway through it now. I think what we all want is a kid that has a goal and knows how to work for it. And if you've read Gift of Failure and you've looked at the middle school chapter, it's really all about executive function. That's what we're talking about here. A kid who is driven, a kid who has purpose, a kid who has hope, a kid who has self-efficacy, a kid who has resilience, and a kid who can pair that with, all of those executive function skills that we talk about, the ones that are things like time management and, managing your resources and starting one thing, stopping another, transitioning, all of that kind of stuff. That's really, when you're really aiming high, you're aiming for a self-driven child. So, to bring all of this lofty, abstract stuff down to the ground level with these questions. The question is, what do I do when my kid is feeling, hopeless? When my kid is feigning helplessness, which again is learned helplessness. When my kid is acting like they can't do something and they'll never ever be able to do it ever again. The best thing you can do for them is come at them with yet. Sweetie, I'm really sorry you can't do this, but remember, math is hard, writing is hard, science is hard. Otherwise, people would just be able to finish kindergarten with a PhD. But this is something that you can't do yet. But in order to be able to do it, you have to stick with it for a little while. You have to have some resilience. And I will be here if you're really, really stuck. But what I care about is not that you come up with the perfect answer, but that you continue to work hard to learn how to get the right answer. It's okay with me if your homework has a blank answer, but what I would like for you to do is if you could write a note to your teacher explaining the problems you were having with this, why you couldn't answer the question, what you tried and didn't work, and what you're going to try, what you've tried and does work. And that's information for your teacher. That's really important. And you know what? I have hope in you. I have belief in you that if you try this enough and you're persistent and you talk to your teacher and get the support you need at school, that you'll be able to do this tomorrow or next week, and that this is going to be stuff that's going to be really important. So when your teacher moves on to the next thing, you'll be all ready to take on something that's even more interesting than this problem you're working on now. The power of yet. The power of hope. You're the source of hope for your kid when they have lost it. The feeling that you really do care about the learning and not just the end product. Process over product. How are you going to handle this next time? That's all about the yet, and that's all about the process of learning. And if I weren't here and you really need to get this problem done on your own, what else could you do? Maybe you could text a friend and ask your friend how he solved it. Maybe you could call a friend. Maybe you could email your teacher. Maybe tomorrow you can talk to your teacher in class. Those are all ways that you can handle your own problems. You can be moved towards this thing that we're always hoping for, this self-driven child. I hope that's helpful. I'm going to email the people who sent me these questions, this question about my kid can't do it and he says he can never do it, so that you have the answer to those questions. And in the meantime, I hope this has been helpful. If this one's been helpful, there are 6 other videos over at my YouTube channel of frequently asked questions for Gift of Failure. You can always read Gift of Failure because a lot of these questions are answered in that book, or you could come on out to one of my speaking engagements, and those are all at jessicalahey.com. And I'm going to be all over the place. DC next week, Southern Idaho, California, all over the place. I've got a whole bunch of stuff coming up. So please come on out and see me. And let me know if you've watched these videos, because frankly, I am tickled to death whenever anyone comes up and says, I've been watching your videos. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope this has been helpful. And until next time, just keep the questions coming, because I'll continue to make these videos as long as there are questions to answer. Thank you.